Hello, hello, hello. Happy 4th of July to all Americans and all future Americans. Welcome. I do think everybody is going to be a future American. I hope. Anyway, moving on. So the three topics for today are going to be Diddy, or Sean, I think he's called. It's Diddy. Well, I don't know why they're using his different name. No, his name's Diddy. Like, just say the actual name. Yeah, please. The Unseen Middle, and 4th of July. Even though I might actually mix up 4th of July and the Unseen Middle. Yeah. So Diddy got charged with all kinds of shenanigans. So to give the TLDR summary, he hosted these parties where they started off normal, and then at a certain time, everybody was told, "Hey, if you have kids or anything, leave." And then they had the really wild stuff where they just did every depraved whatever you can imagine and filmed it because it was an operation to basically bring entertainers and stuff under control of some group, probably the government. But we can't say that because we just partitioned it out to Diddy, just like we did with the Epstein stuff. But basically, that's the long and short of it. And different crimes were done alongside this, including assault of various kinds, the R word, the P word, just all kinds of nasty stuff. The issue, though, and people are like, so he was charged with like 5 different things. I'm not really exactly sure what, but he only got charged guilty is 2 of them, which makes me think that maybe a lot of the stuff he was doing or documented was not actually illegal. It turns out he was a complete perv and a terrible person in so many ways without actually doing anything illegal. Then maybe that shouldn't be the case, but that is the case. But I think this worst crime is actually the crime that he's not being charged for. You see, the 2000s, in 2000 to 2020, I'd say, pop music sucked really, really bad during that whole time frame. Especially after the 90s and before now. Now it's, I think, pretty good. They've got some pretty good stuff now. But there's a long period of time where the pop music, at least, was just god-awful garbage. It's generic, terrible. Everybody agreed. Music buffs all agree. And we all wondered, oh, why is this? Why does the music suck so much? Well, all the top talent coming into the industry during that time period was also the time period where P. Diddy was doing his parties, which means basically the only people who were able to make it in the industry were people who were willing to be Gomorrahized. I'm going to use the other word by an iron pike. That's able to get through. The people who had so little dignity that they were able to do that on film in front of a bunch of rich onlookers. That's basically who became famous in the music industry during that whole time period. Probably should not be wearing this shirt right now, but whatever. I'm not saying anything actually bad. Whatever, who cares? So anyway, that's how the music got so bad, is that this became the winnowing pipe through which people were able to become musicians. So there's probably other things there too, like you only were able to have certain ideological positions, religious opinions, yada, yada, yada. It all went through these parties, which are distinctly I don't even want to say anti-Christian. I would say anti-good, because Christian kind of like connotates, oh, just Christianity. No, all of the religions are against the stuff that they were up to. All of them, universally. You want to say no universal truth? Yeah, it went against anything we all consider universal truth. Atheists, good atheists, every group hates all of the stuff they were up to. And this was the winnowing fan by which you had to go through in order to get into the industry. So no wonder the music sucked. We had all the people who were able to sell out that badly through time. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, different groups that kind of abandoned their friends over the time period, like Mumford & Sons, what did they have done to them to be that backstabby towards that fiddleist that they had? Winston Marshall? Yeah, Winston Marshall. It makes you wonder. It's like how much stuff was being used to get people under control in that time period. So yeah, I think that's Diddy's worst crime, is being the supposed leader of that kind of thing. And you can't charge somebody with defiling the music industry. You can't charge somebody for that, but he should be able to, right? So anyway, that's his worst crime. That's what makes it so. I know some musicians who weren't able to quite make it in the industry, and I feel bad that this is how corrupt it is. This is why good people didn't make it, though. I think it might be better now, but that's just because music is so decentralized now. I don't know. Okay, next topic. The unseen, the 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. So 250 years ago, some of the smartest government people of all time got together and declared independence from Britain. So there's a long lead up to this. Taxes, regulations. What finally triggered it was when the British military charged American militia at Lexington and Concord. Is it Lexington and Concord? I think so. I might be wrong, but it tried to take the guns from some repository for guns, and they didn't like it. So the shots rang out. I think 7 or 8 years later, the war was won by the revolutionaries with the help of France. Have to remember that. And basically, we formed the America we have today. So it started off with the Articles of Confederation that were basically the first draft of government. Didn't really work too well in the first go of it. Then they both made the Constitution. That's when the Federalist Papers were written, which are just excellent, by the way. And the Constitution is what we've been under, with some amendments from the bill, with some amendments for the past 250 years. First 10 amendments came immediately. The other amendments came piecemeal over the past 200 years. Worked really, really well. If you want some good writing and actually understanding the thinking that went through America's founding, I'd recommend first reading the Constitution, actually read the thing, and then read the Federalist Papers, where Madison and Adams basically go line by line through the Constitution, explaining their thought processes behind each article. Because they kind of were arguing for the adoption and embrace of the Constitution at the time. And damn, they were good writers. Like, I don't care if you're smart or not. If you're not smart, you're not going to be able to go through it. But if you're smart, these guys were very, 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 very brilliant. It is amazing how many different things they thought of. And when it comes down to it, people bash the American system a lot. We haven't had a Hitler. We haven't had communists. We haven't had like all of the bad things that have happened. The worst we had as a leader was maybe like the things Lincoln did to get rid of slavery, which more or less was the cause of the Civil War. FDR did some things against civil liberties too, but again, he prevented a Hitler, so they get points for that. So it's a really, really good system. Like America has a lot of faults, mostly cultural, and mostly, how do we put this? We got our people from a lot of culturally kind of rednecky areas. It's almost genetic, the people that we got. America got the people who were so fed up with their own country that they decided to move across an ocean to get it to a new country. So some of our weirdness is kind of genetic, I think. But for all that, it's still like top. I think we're number 5 with median income. So even if you care about income inequality, we have a very high median income. We have a pretty good freedoms. We have an immensely good media system. I mean, every other country is like, oh, we use BBC or different like establishment stuff. We can have a wide range of opinions in America. America actually has a wide range of opinions. And not only right and left, but also religious and not religious, which gives us an extra dimension compared to other countries to solve problems. It is really amazing how well America is. Now, we are lonely. We do have cultural problems. But out of all the countries in the world, I think America is going to be around in 100 years in some form or another as a culture. I can't say the same for most of the civilized world right now. I can't say the same for Germany, France, England. I just can't say it. America, for all of our faults, we might be a slightly darker tint, but we're going to be basically the same country we are now in 100 years. And that's kind of nice because it's kind of nice to have something as the whole world falls apart. America's still going to be here. Now, we have some issues we need to deal with, obviously, the debt, cultural decay, all that stuff. But all in all, America's doing pretty all right. And so it should be celebrated. And also, like, you should celebrate your home. That should be something that is good to celebrate, is your home. This is our home. This is our land. You should celebrate your land. I don't care if you're German, British, but swollen, whatever. You should celebrate where you come from, where your land is. That's a healthy thing. It's not that you're going to become Hitler. No, Hitler wasn't thinking about his nation. He was thinking about his ethnic tribe, which is a different thing. Now, I think you might want to care about that a little bit, but like obviously he took it too far. Yeah, that's one way to phrase it. But yeah, America's a great place. We should be appreciated for it. God bless America. Happy 4th of July. That said, we have to go with make some adjustments. And what's really interesting to me is that this is being unseen by most people. I think people are kind of distracted by the whole woke debate, which is retarded. Wokeness is retarded. But the whole woke debate is kind of distracting us from the fact that there's actually a lot of moving to the middle, or not even the middle. Like, there's a new realization that goes from the populist left to the populist right and the far right that is actually kind of interesting to watch. There's this phrase called the late stage capitalism. And the impression is that as capitalism continues as a system, it gets more and more corrupt, going against its initial reason for existing. So so we're in late stage capitalism, meaning that we are on the verge of reaching something else. And I've seen this across the political spectrum. So I watched this movie, TV show, great movie, Murder Robots, as I told you, and it's kind of got like a very anti-capitalist tinge to it, because in the universe, a giant company created a product that ended up destroying humanity. And then they've got different posters up about late stage capitalism. Guess what? Also, I've heard that same phrase, late stage capitalism, a lot. I've heard it a lot in the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, a pretty far right British media group. So you have like the liberal, pretty roughy, even though not that roughy. Anyway, liberal, center left murder robots having the same theme as the far right, the Lotus Eaters, and then you have people like Michael Knowles or Matt Walsh, also on the right, center right more, talking about it. And then there's probably many people, obviously, on the left who are skeptical of capitalism. It seems to be pretty universal. It's not a localized event. It is pretty universal that capitalism has faults. That just because communism and fascism were bad doesn't mean capitalism works, especially long term. Now, the issue really comes down to the fact that a deal was struck for capitalism. Basically, certain people can make as much money as they want. In exchange, the whole system as a whole gets better. The issue, though, is that the whole system stopped getting better around 30, 40 years ago. Not 30 years. Let's be honest. 20 years ago, it stopped getting better. And yet people kept getting richer and richer. And the way people got richer and richer oftentimes had unforeseen consequences. So they brought in tens of millions of non-assimilatable people to the Western countries. And it's not really an issue in America, because the immigrants we get actually tend to assimilate pretty well, but especially in Europe, they brought in tens of millions of people who don't assimilate well. That basically makes the streets not safe. Quality goes down. Like the UK is just falling off a cliff as far as the economic quality goes. They're just like not doing great. And then meanwhile, all the services we get seem to be getting crappier and crappier. Everything that we actually need is getting more and more expensive, like housing prices and everything like that. It's just getting bad. And the deal is that if you're going to be an elite in this society, make things better, but they're not doing that anymore. Everybody's kind of noticed. And then along with that, you got all the desecration of public morals. I'm not even saying in a Christian sense, but like in general, like there are morals that if you're a Christian or atheist or whatever, you still have these ideas of, and I'm not even talking about LGBT stuff or whatever. But I'm talking about more just general like niceness. So anyway, and has just gone down, and some of that, and people are getting trashier. We all see people getting trashier. That's just a fact. So we see all these different events happening at the same time. And what's really interesting, the left wing has always been kind of like... So the left wing has always been anti-capitalism, but they kind of went in an establishment direction, being pro-big business if they can get their stuff done. So meanwhile, the right is like, well, if you guys are big business, then we're against big business. It's like, so then the actual left, not the establishmentarian left, but the actual left is like, they haven't noticed yet, but there is a coming together of the different sides of... We all kind of agree that late stage capitalism is a thing and the current system is not working, right? We're kind of reaching that point, and it's really, really interesting. As soon as that happens, suddenly it's going to be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen. We don't have another system. Socialism doesn't work. Fascism obviously doesn't work. Neo-feudalism, maybe. Feudalism gets a bad rap because, I mean, at the end of the day, the feudalist society was a lot more equal than ours, and rich people actually fought their own wars, and you had localized distribution of resources. I think that's what we're going to come down to. I think the whole system's going to fall apart. There's going to be a lot of chaos, a lot of destruction, and localized regions throughout the world are going to make a go of it. And it's going to be interesting to see how that happens and how the existing powers that be fight against it. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's interesting. Anyway, next time you argue with somebody on the opposite side of the political aisle, just recognize that they might actually agree with you on a whole lot of stuff. Just find those areas that you actually agree on and stay away from the culture war stuff that's being used to distract us from the economic issues that we have in common. Anyway, cheers.